loaner car today. The truck is in at the shop. Been getting some questions why I focus so much on infrastructure and why do I talk about infrastructure so much in our companies. Let me just answer that. The biggest issue that we've had when we've been buying apartments, building businesses, is just having enough man or woman power. I always say woman power because we have more women working for us than men. They just get stuff done. Women do. But we never have enough woman or manpower to really thoroughly oversee and just conduct all the work and oversee all the work from beginning to end to make sure that it's fitting our quality. To also make sure that we're getting exactly what we're signing up for when we're signing contracts. And so here's an example. Is just Prime Painters alone, the painting company that I started, we have a sales rep. And the sales rep job is to get the leads, contact the leads, set up an estimate, go get the estimate done, and then sign the contract with the client. And once that's done, it's obviously he goes back to selling, right? So he's not seeing the job through to completion. And so it's a matter of having all the paperwork done correctly, all the contracts filled out correctly, all the paperwork, the scope of the work filled out correctly, so that then he can take that folder of that client and hand it over to, right now it's me, hand it over to the project manager. The project manager then can schedule the job, communicate with the customer, communicate with our employees who are going to do the work, or the subcontractors who are going to do the work. Once again, schedule it, oversee it, make sure that it's getting done on time, on budget. We're hitting our deadlines, that the job is getting done with the quality that we're looking to get them done, the level of quality that we're looking to get things done at. And then all the way through to, getting referrals from that customer and collecting the final check and getting referrals from that customer. And without that piece, like right now, we're, with me, I'm like at capacity right now. Like my plate is full. And so with me being that project manager, we just hired a project manager. He starts July 1st. So what's 6 days from now or something like that? 7 days from now, 8-9 days from now, somewhere in there. He starts July 1st. So with me doing that right now, it's hard. So we've had 2 jobs. I should take that back. We've had 1 job right now with a subcontractor where things weren't communicated as good as they could have been, right? And I ended up with a customer that was not happy at first. We ended up doing a good job. He's happy. But we ended up having to give him, a total of 20% discount on the job to make him happy, and, whatever. We'll take our bumps and bruises. But a lot of it is because the infrastructure wasn't yet in place, which I'm understanding of this. The infrastructure was not yet in place to be able to do the job thoroughly. And so now converting over to the apartments, it's the same thing, only now, there's parts of our apartments where we're doing work ourselves. We're also hiring third-party contractors, but our property managers, when we do these heavy capital expenditure projects, these heavy value-add projects in multifamily, our manager's job are to fill the place, collect the revenue, keep the place full, lease new units, get the leases renewed, right? It's but their job can easily become inundated with just communicating with vendors on big projects, right? So if the infrastructure's not there, then other things start to get dropped, like leases not being renewed and stuff like that, right? Things that they should be doing. So I'm all about the infrastructure, because when you have the infrastructure, then everything can run much more smoothly, and ultimately everything's gonna be more value. Everyone that we add and the infrastructure that we add, it's got to add value, right? And so by doing this thing right and having the infrastructure in place from all aspects and all angles, are there costs associated? Is it going to cost more? Well, you can't just look at costs, and I get wrapped up in this too. What's it cost? What's it cost? What's it cost? But the real question needs to be, what's the value? What's the value? What's the value? What's the value? And so whenever there's a cost, if that cost provides value that's 2 times the cost, you would do that all day long. And typically that's what happens. Like when we have costs, initially we'll look at something like, oh, it's going to cost so much more, but then we actually implement it and start, and we get that cost, but that cost brings so much value on the other end that it's 2x or 3x net, right? So the value is 2 or 3x what the cost is, and it's a lot less headache for everyone else. Now, is that always the case? Because you can just add in, that's not always the case, because you can always just add infrastructure. But if you're not actually getting the value and it's straight up just a cost you're getting, then it's not a good decision, right? But anytime you can actually justify the value that you're getting for the cost, and if you can get 1.5x or 2x or 3x or 5x the cost in value, then it's like something you want to pull the trigger on all the time, because when you can increase value, like if every single cost I brought on added that much value, I'd be doing it all the time, obviously, right? It's just obvious. So that's how you gotta look at it. That's why I'm talking about infrastructure all the time. You can't grow without infrastructure. I mean, you're capped. I saw someone post something the other day about, hey, here's a $1 million property owner, whatever, millionaire landlord, and it was a picture of the guy picking the weeds out of his own property. And it's like, yeah, great, we all have to do that at some point, but you're capped. Like, as an owner and of real estate, like, you're capped. If you're gonna be picking weeds, you're gonna be getting sick of doing the real estate at some point, and you're gonna get burnt out, and you're not gonna take care of the asset. And I see it all the time where the older generation is looking to sell an asset, and the asset's just beat up because they tried doing it mom and pop style for so long and didn't have people help them. They didn't have the infrastructure, that eventually things just got out of control. They got sick of it. They started to resent the property. They didn't take care of the property, and then they got crushed on the back end. Now, they held on to the property long enough that no matter what, they're going to come out all right, because they bought it at $10,000 a unit and they're selling it at $90,000 a unit. But there's a better way to do things along the way, and so that's why I'm always talking about infrastructure. And the infrastructure is going to have a cost, but the infrastructure should add a value that is 1.5, 2x, 3x, 5x the cost all the time. Now, sometimes it's an investment up front, though, right? So you're not going to actually see that 3x value of cost for maybe a year or 2 years or 6 months. Like, it's rare that you're just going to see it on day one, and that's the issue that a lot of people run into, like these mom and pop shops with owning apartment buildings. That's the trouble they run into, is they view that investment as a cost, and they're not able to sacrifice now for that added value later. And the crazy thing is, once you add that value later, like, now you got your systems in place, right? Or as long as you make that investment now, yeah, you'll get the value later. But by doing it now, you make an investment now that infrastructure is in place, and now it's plug and play for other projects or other assets or whatever, right? And so it's just it's more of a abundant or infinite type mindset. And even, like I said, sometimes myself, I'm getting caught up in just costs, when really the question needs to be, what's the added value in relation to the cost? So that's why I'm always talking about infrastructure. You need infrastructure to grow. You need people. You need resources, aka money, and your businesses and properties and whatever. They need those resources, aka money, people, the infrastructure, to not just like continue surviving and barely surviving, but to really thrive and to grow into something that's really significant, that can be life changing, right? I mean, people give me crap for starting this painting company, just like whatever. I'm getting crap for everything that I've done in my life in the beginning, but people, you're not seeing the people that are giving me crap aren't seeing the total picture. Like, I'm not starting a painting company to go out there and be the person painting every single house. Obviously, we need those people. I love those people. But I'm not saying I'm the person that's going to go do that. I'm not looking to do that. I'm looking to build a company. I'm looking to build a business that we don't just do $20,000 of work here and there, or we don't just do $600,000 of work a year like a hobby. Like, I'm trying to have a $20 million a year business, right? Now, a $20 million a year business takes infrastructure, right? A $500,000, $1 million, a $1.5 million business, $2 million business, they need much infrastructure? No, not all the time. Sometimes you can just grind that out if you're a champ, even up to maybe $3 or $4 million business a year, a revenue. You can maybe just grind that out. But if you're looking to have a $5 million, $8 million, $20 million, $150 million a year revenue business, you have to have an infrastructure. And that's what I'm after. And having that infrastructure, once again, it should add the value as the business owner. It should be removing items off your plate, removing stress off your plate. Although some days, you get stressed out, whatever. But it should be allowing you to take a vacation when you want to take a vacation. It should be giving you more freedoms as you're growing it. So that's a little bit of my input on why I'm so focused on the infrastructure and why it's necessary, at least with what I'm trying to do, and why I hope that more people can kind of have that mindset that, hey, you don't have to do everything. Like, there are people that are better at you than the bookwork. There are people that are better than you are at running 500 apartments, right? Like our chief operating officer, CJ, she's a better manager of these assets, being cumulative 500 units than I am. Straight up. That's why she's doing what she's doing and in the role that she's doing, right? So we're all good at, certain things, but there's always things that there's people that are more qualified than you that you should hire to get on your team, to partner up with, to build the infrastructure to grow your company.